Immediately, I thought he was really cute.
Good afternoon, the Sher system. Yes, you can call it love at first sight. Knowing Helen today, you can see why I chose Helen. I mean, she was beautiful then, and she's beautiful now.
We must not go to bed and stay angry, because it's a waste of time. We're going to make up in the end anyway. We might as well do it sooner rather than later.
I fancy other women, but then again, I mean, why create problems? If I love my wife and I'm enjoying her, why go down the wrong track?
I saw this lovely, handsome, dark-haired chap, and I thought, he's my type. I really liked him. I thought he was gorgeous.
I felt the same way about her. She's still gorgeous. What can I say? Coming along with a coffee, my dear? I love your frog cappuccino. One day when I went to see my friend, Helen came along with her older sister to meet her friend. And that's how I met Helen. I think she was 14 at the time. I was all of about 21, I think. So we looked at each other, and so we smiled, and I said to her, "We'd like to go to the movies on Friday." She said that would be fine.
When I met him, obviously I was attracted to him immediately. I thought he was really cute. I mean, I didn't know anything else about him. And they were a lot older than I was. In fact, they were a lot older than the younger sister. So can you imagine how upset these older girls were when Willard paid attention to me?
So you can call it love at first sight. Knowing Helen today, you can see why I chose Helen. I mean, she was beautiful then, and she's beautiful now.
And it was an immediate physical attraction. He was dark and very slim and sort of cheeky. And obviously he felt the same way, because he invited me to go to the cinema with them, which the boys always did after. Needless to say, I made a lot of enemies that day.
After the movies, we went to the theater, to the opera, and so on and so forth. I didn't have a car at the time, but we were so in love, I believe so, that she didn't mind going on a bus. And then I get to meet her parents and the rest of her family, and about a year and a half later, I think it was a year later, we got engaged.
Well, we met in September, and it was my birthday in December, and he sent me a card, so it was really quite new, and I mean, it wasn't really dating, but I was thrilled. I remember I was on my way to work at a Christmas job, and I was thrilled beyond belief that he sent me this birthday card, and I still have it. And I guess it just progressed from there. My parents weren't too thrilled that I was serious about someone at that young age, but they liked Willard. They liked him very much, and that made a big difference. I suppose their greatest fear was, in those years, was having a good-looking daughter that might become pregnant, which was the furthest thing from my mind. But I know as a parent that they were quite concerned about that. So I suppose it was the lesser of the two evils.
She was very mature for her age at that time. I thought so. In fact, I must confess that when I did marry Helen at the age of 16, I lied and I told my parents that she was 18. And they felt, even at 18 she was very young. But I think but they really loved her very much, and she got along very well with them. And we got married in June of 1951. She was 16 and a half. And right after the wedding, before we went to our honeymoon in New York, her mother called me aside and she said, "Willer, I want to do me a favor. Please look after her. She's just a little girl." I never forgot it.
My mother said to me, "You love beautiful things, you have very good taste, and Willer is just a working man. He'll never be a millionaire." And I said, "Well, I don't know if he'll ever be a millionaire, but even if I have to live in a barn, I'd rather live with Willer than with anyone else." So that was it. I mean, she did try to warn me. But I didn't, I would never marry someone for their money. I mean, I always wanted to have my own money. I wanted to do my own thing. And the fact that he was supportive, to me, was a greater gift than somebody giving you money and trying to manage your life for you. That wasn't my idea of a long-term partnership.
Yes, we didn't have any money to speak of. We lived in a small apartment. Helen was working, I was working, so we were just making a living. And then when Glenda was born, Helen was 20 years old. It wasn't that easy.
But we had to wait for our carpets and things like that, and that was fun, because when you finally did save up and were able to buy those things, there's such a wonderful feeling of achievement that you've accomplished something, because nobody gave it to us. We worked for it, and I think that's very important. A lot of people that we know who had things given to them didn't appreciate them as much as we did.
Place La Redoute in France that we went to, where the stuff is pretty reasonable. Well, there's a whole article here. There's a catalog now, and it's available.
We do have the disagreements or tips, but then again, I think it's only normal to have disagreements. We don't agree on everything we do and everything we say, but then again, we kiss and make up as soon as we can.
We made up very early on together that we would always make up at night. We would never go to bed angry. And although it was very tough because we're both stubborn, we did keep to that promise. And I think that was a wonderful rule for us, because, if you force yourself to make up at bedtime, then things are going to be okay.
You can't always have it your way. Sometimes Helen might want to do something that I don't want to do, but I'll go along with her, and vice versa. You have to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're not going to be hurting the other person, or she's not going to be hurting me. You can't be aware of it all the time, but I think that is very, very important in everyday relationship.
We don't really have arguments anymore. We have discussions, or we can say, "Look, I don't want to talk about that at the moment. I will discuss it with you, but when I'm in, another day, another time," and it works.
You must talk. If there's a problem, you've got to speak about it. If you disagree about something, you've got to discuss it. It just doesn't happen. You have to make it work. When I turned 50 in 1978, I was in a very good position with a large aluminum company in Canada. I was with the company for 15 years. I felt like I was in a rut. I didn't like going into the office on a Monday morning, even though I had job security. Helen had a nice job. She was a cosmetic buyer for a large corporation in Canada. And I just wanted to do something else with my life for the next 10, 15, or 20 years, whatever I had left. And I wanted to live somewhere else. So I decided, look, where am I going to go, what I'm going to do? I realized I had a friend living here in London, England, and I got in touch with him. I came to visit him in January of 1978, and I met with him here. And he said, look, come over, and maybe we'll do something together.
I thought of it as a great opportunity because I've always been adventurous, and I always wanted to live in another country, travel, just experience different cities, countries. And for me, I saw it as an opportunity
we had to step down. I mean, giving up a lovely home in Canada and eventually ending up living in rented quarters, it was not an easy step to take. And many people will say, what am I doing here? Are you crazy or what? You had such a lovely home, 2 cars, and you're coming here to London and living in North London in a small flat? Well, you must be nuts.
He left in May, and I came to visit him in September. And he was really quite unhappy. He was living in rented accommodation, and you know, 2 heads are better than one. And I thought to myself, it would be a wonderful idea if he could live with a family until I could get back to England permanently. And through a mutual friend, I did manage to find a family who he could live with, and it was the most successful thing.
When I came here, I was a year on my own. I had a tough time making ends meet. Helen was disappointed that things weren't happening. We didn't realize that the property market was so expensive here, so we had to rent a flat until such time as we found someplace to live in. But then again, Helen, being the person that she is and being the wonderful person she felt doesn't matter. She's the optimist, I'm the pessimist. She felt when I come over here, things are gonna happen, things are gonna change, and it happened. It did change.
I just saw it as an adventure. I knew that wherever I would go, my field of work would be very much an advantage. I had a lot of experience in the cosmetic industry and also in the fashion industry. And North American experience here in the UK was very much in demand at that time because things were starting to change here, becoming more Americanized, and as it has proven to be.
But it didn't create any tension between us as a husband and wife team. I mean, because we understood. I mean, we're going through a bad patch, and hopefully it'll get better. And
temporary. Because most things like that are temporary, and I think if you just think of it as short term, and you know that it's going to end somewhere and something good will happen, and that's usually what does happen.
But that's where the support system comes in. That's when you need support. That's when you find out if the marriage works. Is when you're down. And you pull together, that's when it counts. When you're sitting on top of the world, it's easy to get along. It's much more difficult when things are tough.
I think that is probably very true, and that's where a lot of couples become unstuck. I think that when you have a problem, you have to solve it together, and there are certain times in one's life where perhaps things are going well for one party and not the other, and you have to support each other in that situation, and it's always been that way for us. And also, I'm a great believer in networking. I belong to quite a few women's networking groups, and one of them has a branch in the UK, and I transferred my membership, and the actual day that I arrived here, I attended a meeting. I didn't let the jet lag get to me, and through that meeting, I actually got my first job.
I was never worried about my relation going under. I was only concerned about making a living or making ends meet. But as far as Helen and a relationship of mine, there was never a problem between. I knew that even if we didn't have a penny, we'd get along. It was never a problem.
I couldn't imagine ever leaving someone because they're in dire straits and are having a rough time. I mean, that's when they need you the most. I don't think that ever occurred to either of us. That we would leave each other because of something as unimportant as money. Now, if you don't mind taking your jacket off and your earrings, I'll put this around you. And then we're going to do the most exciting part of the program, which is replace the water that you've lost. We now run a business, a skincare company in New Bond Street. And I do the marketing, the PR, and the analyzing of the clients. It's a very one-to-one personal business. And although we've never worked together before, Willard does all the administrative things. He looks after the packaging, the filling, the mail order, and it's very much a team effort. So it's building something which is wonderful. And having worked for large companies in the past where there's a lot of backstabbing, it's very comforting to work with your family because you know each other's habits and you have complete trust and you can just get on with the work at hand. Very natural, isn't it?
It is.
And how does it feel?
It feels wonderful.
We've been together now for 5 years in this business. We have, I get into the office about an hour before Helen. Helen comes in about 9:30, 10 o'clock. We spend our days together. We enjoy our work immensely. We get home at a pretty late hour because we work very late. We come home, we have dinner. Helen's a fantastic cook. We have a 3-course meal every night.
I try to make each meal as pretty and as interesting as I would if I was having special guests. And I think that's very important. I think that a lot of couples don't do that. They work very hard to impress other people and don't do that for themselves. And after all, who's more important than the one you share your life with? She looks very much like Chloe, doesn't she? Look.
She does. So tell me, do you think we can go see our granddaughters tomorrow night after work? Have you got a late appointment?
I don't know. Maybe others don't think about that. I don't know. It's very difficult to say, but sometimes we've been on holidays with other people, with other couples, and they don't seem to be as considerate of the other party as we are to each other.
It's chicken and delicious. It's a new sauce, isn't it?
Yeah. Chili sauce. I have more in the kitchen if you want some.
I'm an affectionate person. I'm a giving person when it comes to caring and sort of. I like to cuddle and hug and kiss. I enjoy it, and I do it as often as I can. And she's kissable. She's so easy to kiss.
Hey, Willard, take a look at this recipe. They're called cheesy spinach burgers. And remember I used to make them a long time ago?
That's right.
I completely forgot about it, but it looks like a very good thing for me to make. It's not very fattening. And
I wish there was a recipe that would work for everyone, but I think if the personalities involved are the right ones, then you can work out any problem. But you have to have someone to talk to. I mean, obviously, if I have a problem and I discuss it with Willard, or he has a problem, he discusses it with me, we listen. You have to be a good communicator. You have to listen to what the other person is saying and be prepared to say you're wrong if you've made a mistake and apologize. And it's the challenge of making it work. I just knew from the start that, you know, I would have a marriage that would last forever.
When I get up in the morning and I look at lovely Helen, it's not boring. For me, it's not boring. She's such an outgoing person. She's so positive. If I'm down, I'm Cancer, she's Capricorn. She just lets me be. I get into my shell. She'll ignore me for a couple of hours or whatever it has to be, until I sort of come back to myself, and that's what it's all about. She tries to please me. I try to please her. We don't find it boring at all. We find it. We find every day is a new challenge. It's more exciting. We can't wait for our 50th wedding anniversary. I think it's wonderful. And I mean, I'm very proud when I sit. Look at this Helen here. She gets a bus pass and she's on a pension. Would you believe it? She looks like 40. People don't believe it. That makes me feel good. Being 67 years old and married to a girl who looks like 40. I think it's wonderful. She's just lovely.